Hello everyone. This is part 5 in my series, Jesus is God. And today we're going to be taking a look at Matthew chapter 22 verses 42 through 45. And Jesus is speaking with the Pharisees here. And he says in the Greek, Ti mindoki perito Christu, tinos vios estin, legusen aufto tu David. Lei auftis poson Davide nuvmatikali aufton Kyrion legon, ipen Kyrios tu Kyriomu, katho ektexionmu, eos anthotus ekthrusu, upokato ton poronso. Ion David kali aufton Kyrion, pos vios auftu estin. Which in the English is, what do you think about the Messiah, the Christ? Whose son is he? And they said to him, David's. And he said to them, how is it then that David, in the Spirit, calls him Lord, saying, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put thine enemies under thy feet. If then David calls him Lord, how is he his son? Okay, very interesting question Jesus is asking here. And this is being quoted from Psalm 110, which is the most frequently quoted or referenced psalm in the New Testament. Specifically from Psalm 110:1, which reads in the Hebrew, the David Mizmor, the Psalm of David. Ne'om Yahweh ladoni, shev limini ad ashit oevka adom laragelka. Okay, the Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Now notice two things here. In the Greek we have ipen Kyrios to Kyriomu. Both lords are Kyrios. Whereas in the Hebrew, the first lord is Yahweh, the sacred tetragrammaton, which is used only of God. And the second lord is Adon, which is a very close synonym. However, Adon can also be used of men. And if you have any contact with modern day Jews, you'll note that they would substitute in Adon for Yahweh. They do not pronounce the word Yahweh because they consider it too holy. However, we do not have any such practice in Christianity. The second difference between the Hebrew and the Greek being that the Hebrew idiom, putting your enemies, making your enemies a footstool for your feet, is simply replaced in the Greek by putting your enemies beneath your feet, meaning the same thing. One is the Greek being more literal, the Hebrew being more idiomatic. Now, what Jesus is saying here is extremely interesting because first, he's settling any possible question that Psalm 110 is a messianic psalm because he's saying that Adon here is referring to Messiah. So it's a messianic psalm, obviously. Second, Jesus identified himself as the Messiah in several places in the New Testament. Now that makes the passage even more interesting. So let's turn to John chapter 4, verses 25 through 26. John 4, 25 through 26, where Jesus is speaking to the Samaritan woman, and he says, or the woman said to him, the Samaritan woman said to him, Jesus, I know that Messiah is coming. He was called Christ. And when that one comes, he will declare to us all things. And Jesus said to her, Ego eimi olalonsi. Ego eimi olalonsi. I am the one speaking with you. Now, that is a very clear allusion to Exodus 3:14, as we've covered in prior videos. Exodus 3:14 in the Septuagint Greek says, Ego eimi oon. And now compare that to what Jesus said to the Samaritan woman in John 4:26, Ego eimi olalonsi. You can see very clear allusion to Exodus 3:14. Jesus is the great I am. So what is Jesus saying here then in Matthew 22, 42 through 45? Obviously it was quite a statement because he utterly silenced the Pharisees forever, as is shown in the following verse, Matthew 22:46, where Jesus, it makes the comment, no one was able to answer him a word, nor did anyone dare from that day on to ask him another question. He totally silenced them, and I like Gill's exposition of the entire Bible, a commentary that I find has some pretty interesting and trenchant analysis of the Bible at times. Gill says here, they, the Pharisees, saw the dilemma they were reduced to, either to acknowledge the deity of the Messiah or confess their ignorance, and neither of them they cared to do, and therefore judged it to be the wisest part to be silent. So what Jesus is stating in this passage is that Messiah was both David's Lord, existing and superior to David at the time David was alive, and David's son or descendant, one who was not born at the time David wrote Psalm 110. He would not be born until 1,000 years after David's death. So thus Matthew 22, 42 through 45 is a very clear declaration by Jesus that he is God. That proof would take place in three parts. Part A, the Messiah would be God, Psalm 110:1. B, Jesus is the Messiah, John 4:26. C, therefore, Jesus is God. So in Matthew 22:45, you're finding another similar statement to the two statements that we've gone through in previous videos. If then David calls him Lord, how is he his son? A very similar statement to John 8:58. Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. And John 1:15, when John the Baptist said, he who comes after me has a higher rank than I, for he existed before me. Because these three verses are saying that Jesus existed before David, before Abraham, and before John the Baptist, even though he was born after them. And that's because Jesus is the Yeled, the child in the Ben, son, who was also El Gibor, mighty God, and Aviad, the father of eternity, in Isaiah 9:6, which reads, for a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Father of Eternity, Prince of Peace. This is Jesus. Therefore, Jesus is God. Thank you.